I'm homesick today, and been for the past few days. I've been on a kind of Justice Antonin Scalia binge lately, and Clarence Thomas and some of those guys. I watched Justice Breyer and Antonin Scalia. Now, if you followed me at all, or which not very many people have, this is still a fairly new channel, but I'm not a huge fan of judicial review. I think it actually needs to go away. But I'll point it out real quick here. Some different things. So number one here, looking at Article 1, Section 2, the opening statement, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution and the laws of the United States and the treaties made or which shall be made under their authority. Okay, so, and then it enumerates a list of cases. Now, this is the first clause. The next clause is going to get into then the which of those cases. There's only two kinds. It says in all cases affecting ambassadors, public ministers, and consuls, those which a state shall be a party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. And then in all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as Congress shall make. So first off, I've pointed this out a million times. You've got a enumerated list of cases here, which I didn't read them off. And I didn't want to distract from the main point I'm getting at today. Then you've got the Supreme Court isn't mentioned until the second clause. So if you read the opening, Section 1, the judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. So the judicial power isn't even completely in the Supreme Court. And so it says judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity, rising under the Constitution, all the things that are in Article 6, Clause 2. The Constitution, the laws, and the treaties, right? Law and equity. Okay, so what does that mean? So when you're the judge with the original jurisdiction looking at the case, you need to look at the words, the written laws, right? So it says law, and then equity. If you look up Giles Jacobs' dictionary definition, and I'm not going to read it to you right now, I've got a facsimile of it. It's a little bit iffy to read, but basically equitable principles were this idea that equity could soften up the strictness of the law, where the individual cases on a case-by-case basis, it was appropriate, right? So again, it says the judicial power shall extend to all cases, not to the Constitution itself, not to the laws, not to the permanent meaning of people's oath of office, anything like that. It applies to cases in law, the written law, and equity, just in case the strictness of the law needs to be softened up. Now, then when it gets down here and it talks about appellate jurisdiction, right? It says, Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction both as to law and fact, with such exceptions. So first off, again, they can't have jurisdiction over everything, otherwise there wouldn't be an option for exceptions. So let's not be silly about the whole thing. They really have very limited jurisdiction to things that are actually relevant to the limited few and enumerated powers, as Madison called them. And again, when they're dealing with the appeals process, it's law and fact only. It's not law and equity. And law and fact tells me the only way an appeal, that the ruling of a previous judge should be overturned, is if they got something wrong regarding the laws or the facts. The equitable principles, they shouldn't be like second guessing the equitable principles that the previous judge applied. So otherwise that previous judge loses its credibility, right? And that's inappropriate. Equitable principles, I believe, should be the unique domain of the original jurisdiction judge, right? This is everything I'm seeing right here. I stare at this thing a lot because, of course, the Trump administration has brought this out. So there are two ingredients for original jurisdiction, law and equity. There's a third ingredient that people always try to sneak in there, which is precedent. If it's bad precedent, okay, this is the way I see it. This law and equity. Law is like the milk, and equity is like that little bit of cream that rises to the top that makes it nice, right? That's great. Well, when you start adding in precedent, if it's good precedent, it's like adding water to the whole mix. It does nothing good for the mix. It doesn't hurt the mix. It does. It hurts it, and then it waters it down. It makes it less potent. And then when you add bad precedent to the mix, it's like adding urine to that milk, if you ask me. Something that's toxic, that is just not good, right? Milk is the law. cream is the equity. All that is good. You start adding water to it. I don't know what the heck you're doing, man. And then the like I said, bad precedent, even worse, because you're basically adding urine to it. You're adding stuff that's not even supposed to be there. That's actually hurts the mix as opposed to just waters it down. And then when you're dealing with the appellate process, apparently that says law and fact. That's just the pure milk, basically, if you ask me. Did any of the facts of the cases did they get any of the facts of the case wrong, right? And anyhow, that's what I see. So there are only supposed to be two ingredients for original jurisdiction: law and equity, and then for appeals, law and fact. That's really what it is. You start adding precedent to it, you're watering down the process, or even doing worse, right? And the Constitution does not call for any third ingredient at all in the judicial process, not at all. And to add it to say, oh well, it's tradition from this or that, doesn't matter. The Constitution is the Constitution. You should always be referring back to the Constitution. It is literally the highest portion of the supreme law of the land. And that didn't make it into the Constitution. It's not there. So to treat it, what they call constitutional law classes, by the way, for lawyers, everything I understand, they spend way more time studying landmark cases. I think like 75% of the time or something like that, which is just ridiculous. They need to know the actual Constitution. So it makes me almost lose faith in the law profession. From what I understand, up until about the 60s or 70s, the originalist idea, which I don't think the originalist, I think originalist judicial review is an oxymoron. Okay, because Jefferson said, it is just as much my job to read the Constitution for myself and apply my own oath to my understanding of the Constitution as it is for John Marshall to do it for himself. The Constitution is meant to bind the people individually, and the Supreme Court or the President or the Congress, none of them are ever supposed to say, no, my version of understanding the Constitution is the version that you're supposed to apply to your oath, period, or else you're in trouble because you're not following what I told you to do about the Constitution. That is not it. Our loyalty is to the Constitution itself, not somebody else's opinion about what the Constitution is. And so law and equity for cases, and then law and fact for overturning previous decisions. Leave the equitable principles out of it if there was something wrong with the law or the facts itself. And that's it. And no, none of this says that it's binding on the Constitution itself or that it applies to Article 6, Clause 2, that it becomes part of the supreme law of the land. It doesn't. It doesn't. All legislative powers are vested in Congress. Go back and read Article 1, Section 1. To make something law, it has to be legislated, and all legislative powers are vested in Congress.